Humbert here. Today we're going to be doing Unit 6 Quiz 1 review. So we're going to be going over what you need to take that quiz. So for number 1, it asks you to find the value of x, and you do so by using the Pythagorean theorem. So we know two of our legs, and what we don't know is the hypotenuse. So what I need to do is take 10.2 and square it, and then I'm going to take 6.3 and square it, and that's going to be equal to x squared. Well, 10.2 squared is going to give me 10.2 squared, goodness, struggle. So when I square 10.2, I get 104.04. And then 6.3 squared gives me 39.69. And that's going to be equal to x squared. So now I can go and add those two together. And when I do that, I get 143.73. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides because that's how I'm going to simplify out that x. So then I get x is equal to the square root of 143.73. And that's going to give me 11.99. So, or basically almost 12 is the length of that hypotenuse, x. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 2. So for number 2, again, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, but this time we don't know one of our legs. Remember that the hypotenuse always sits across from the right angle. So one of our legs isn't known. So we have x squared plus 13 squared is equal to 22 squared. Well, then I get x squared, 13 squared is 169. And that's going to be equal to 22 squared, which is 284. So now I need to go about solving this for 9. So I'm going to subtract 169 from both sides. And then I get that x squared is equal to 315. Again, to solve for x, I need to take the square root of both sides. And when I do that, I get 17.75. Please make sure you watch your rounding as you're doing this. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 3. Number 3 is asking you to find the geometric mean between two numbers. So all you're going to do is take the square root of their product. So you're going to do 25 times 16. Well, 25 times 16 is going to be 400, not 200. So then we're going to take the square root of 400. And when you take the square root of 400, you end up getting 20. So the answer for number 3 is 20. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 4. So we need to figure out if the triangle exists. So the first thing we need to do is add the two lengths. Add the two lengths together. And we want to make sure that they're bigger than 9. So 7 plus 6, is that greater than 9? Yes. So it is a triangle. So now I want to see what kind of triangle it's going to be. So I'm going to take 7 and square it, and 6 and square it, and then I'm going to set it equal to 9 squared. So then I want to see if it is going to be equal. Well, 7 squared is 49, and 6 squared is 36, and that's going to be 81. So then I get 85, and that's going to be greater than 81. So since the two smaller sides added together is greater than the larger side, that's going to make this an acute triangle. Acute triangle. So let's take a look at the next one. We want to see if the triangle exists. So we need to see if 5 plus 7 is greater than 13. Well, 12 is not greater than 13, so the triangle doesn't exist. Why? Because the sides are not bigger than the other ones. So when it asks why, you can just say the sides aren't bigger. The two sides added aren't bigger than the largest side, or you could just write that the sides don't add up. So that's your answer for number 5. Let's take a look at number 6. So for number 6, first of all, x is going to be easy to find because x is the altitude cutting this triangle in half, which means that x is the geometric mean of those two numbers. So I'm going to take 15 times 19. So then 15 times 19 is going to give me 159. Well, the square root of 159, 285, goodness, where did I get that from? So I'm going to take the square root of 285. So you take the square root of 285, and for x, you end up getting 16.89. So now we're going to set up our triangle. So first thing I'm going to do is set up this triangle right here. So I can set it up, and I know that one of my triangles is going to be 16.88, and the other one is going to be 15. And the hypotenuse is y. So I can go ahead and use the Pythagorean theorem to solve this guy. So 16.88 squared is just going to give us 285. 15 squared is 225, and that's going to be equal to y squared. So 285 plus 225, you're going to end up getting that y squared is equal to 510. So you're going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides. So you take the square root, and then you end up getting that y is equal to 22.58. So that's your answer for y is 22.58. So now we need to get our z. So z is going to look like this. Okay, so when you do z, we're going to select a different color so that it's easy to see. So then what we want to do is this one right here. So we're going to do 19x and z. Oops, so we know x, I can erase that. That x is going to be 11 or 10 point, what did I say? 16.87. If I could read my own writing, I'd be having a good day. So then what we want to do is set up the Pythagorean theorem. So 16.87 squared plus 19 squared is equal to z squared. Well, remember that this is just 285 plus 19 squared. So 19 squared is going to give us 361, and that's equal to z squared. Well, 361 plus 285 is going to give us 646, and that's equal to z squared. So I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of that answer. So when I take the square root of 646, I end up getting 25.42. So that's my final answer for number 6. Now let's take a look at these leg ones. So taking a look at number 7, we want to find the value. So I notice that's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So this is where notes 3 is going to come in really handy. So when you have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, we're given for x, we want to know the leg. We want a 45, 45, 90 triangle. The two legs are the same length. So that means that x is also 7 square root of 2. Now on the quiz, I do want you guys to write it as a radical. I do not want to see decimals unless you see an approximate symbol. Okay, which there isn't one. So then now it says on my rule sheet, if you are given a leg and you want to find the hypotenuse, which is what y is, you're going to take the leg, which is 7 times the square root of 2, and multiply it times the square root of 2. Well, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is just 2. So I really end up getting 7 times 2, which is going to give me 14. So then I get that y is equal to 14. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 8. Okay, so for number 8, now we have a 60, 90, 60, 30, 90 triangle. So I'm going to need to use the other side of my rules. So what I know is the short leg. So I'm going to use any rule that applies to the short leg. So one of the rules is, if given the short leg, to find the hypotenuse, which is y. Remember, because it's sitting across the right angle. So it says, if given the short leg, to find the hypotenuse, you multiply times 2. So we're going to do 5 times 2, which is 10. So y is going to be 10. Then it says, if given the short leg, to find the long leg, then what you're going to do to get the long leg is you're going to take the short leg and multiply it by the square root of 2. That's the rule. So I'm going to take the square root of 3. So I'm going to take 5 times the square root of 3, which is really just going to be 5 square root of 3. So that is my answer for x, is 5 square root of 3. Next, let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 9. Again, I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, so I want to use that triangle's theorem. So it says we want to find the value of x, and again, it says to leave the answers with square roots. So it says if you're given the legs are always connected to the right angle. So I'm given the legs, to find the hypotenuse, I need to multiply the leg by square root of 2. So I only need to take one of the legs. So I'm going to take 9 square root of 2, and then I need to multiply it by the square root of 2. So the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. Well, and 9 times 2 is 18. So that gives your answer on number 9. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 10. So we're given 30, 60, 90 triangle. Remember that the one that's touching the 30-degree angle, that's your long side. So we're given the long side. We don't know the short or the hypotenuse. Remember, the hypotenuse is always sitting across from the right angle. So it says, if given the long leg, to find the short leg, you need to divide by the square root of 3. So then I'm going to take 14 square root of 3, and I'm going to divide it by the square root of 3. So that means I can cancel out the square root of 3's over the square root of 3's, and for the short leg, which is x, I'm just left with 14. So now I want to get the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse has 2 steps. So the first step is to divide by the square root of 3. Well, I did that here. Okay, so the first step to get the hypotenuse is divide by the square root of 3. So I have that. So then, now that I've divided by the square root of 3, I need to multiply by 2. So 14 times 2 is going to give me 28. So that concludes your review video for today. Go ahead and let me know once you are ready for that quiz. Thank you for listening.